So this is a sample of a box pleat. You find box pleats on like school uniforms, on the girls' skirts, pleated skirts. A box pleat is, with a normal pleat you're going in one direction. With the box pleat you're going two into each other, two away, two in. So if you look at the bottom, look at it from this view, you can see, so I've got an inch there and here and two at the top, and then two under, an inch, two, inch, two. So these two are ironed towards each other, and then the underneath they're ironed towards each other. So when you create a box pleat, it's a good idea to pre-hem first, because it's quite hard to do it after the fact. So at the waist area you would fix it down, so if you top stitch down so far, so what you do, this is the waist, you would top stitch sort of over the higher hip onto the belly area so that it controls it and keeps it flat, and then you leave the rest of it to just be free. So if you look at it, they're like little doors opening up, is an easy way to visualize it. So the doors meet, and they also meet underneath. On a box pleat they don't have to completely meet underneath, but I would like you to do that. So how you create it is, if you look at these are box pleat, so if I open it up, and you look at the measurements, it's 1 inch, 2 inch, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Carry on like that. And then what you're doing is find one of the 2 inch ones, and the ones that are on the side of it, the 1 inch, iron the crease towards that way. So it's like little doors, you're opening up little doors, and you iron them in so they meet there. And then same on this one, so you got the 1 inch, the 2 inches on the top, so you press it at that line and press it under at the other line, and again you create another set of doors. So you got 2, 1, so you iron them creases in from underneath here, and then this back. So if you look at it here, I've ironed it in, and then I can iron that one down. Again, I would iron that in and the other under, so you're creating all these little kind of doors like that. The same. So this is the box pleat, and then the inverted pleat is this part here. The inside is the inverted pleat. So box pleats you're creating for skirts and stuff, and when you're doing a whole series of them, a lot of them. An invert you might do 1 or 2. Usually 1, like on the back of a pencil skirt you'll do 1, and it gives it, because the skirt's tight around your thighs, you have a little inverted pleat at the back of it, and it allows some room so that you can move and walk. You also see this on the inverted one on the back of Victorian bodices. They will usually have an inverted one or sometimes 2. and it kicks out and allows room for where the bustle is. So they're both done exactly the same, but usually in invert you only have one or two of them, whereas a box pleat you'll have a whole load of them. The difference also is with a box pleat, they can meet, or sometimes they can be more shallow if you like, but with an invert they have to meet. They can't be spaced out. So I would like you to make both of them. If you make 2 or 3 of the box pleat, and make sure that they meet. I would like you to have them meet in this case. And the invert pleat, just do one like that on its own. Yeah. So measured knife pleats. You will again, I'm doing inch ones again. So I've got an inch here, 2 inch, 1 inch, 2 inch, carry on like that. And if you see the blue dotted line here and the pink, so the pink is in the middle of the 2 inch section and the blue is on the 1 inch right hand side. So what you do is you join that to this. And again, the blue to the pink. And you just created your perfect knife pleats. Oh, there's another one there. And then you would come along and either top stitch them, again from the waist down to just over the stomach area. So you could also, if you wanted, you could stitch along the edge all the way down to fix them. Or there's a company called Cements Pleating. You can send your fabric to them and they will pleat it, steam the pleats into place. So if you got any other difficult pleating, like these are easy to do, but when you start doing sunray pleating, and there's all other kinds of elaborate pleating techniques, it's just easier to send it to Cements. You send them the fabric and they set it, the steam in the pleats, and then they send it back to you. So you have to weigh up the cost of it, how much pleating you got to do, how difficult it is, because you don't want to be spending days trying to do a really complicated pleating when you can just send it there, have it sent back a few days later, and it's done. And it's done perfectly. So yeah, Cements pleating's the way to go when it's more complicated. So when you're making freehand pleats, you just literally use part of your finger as a gauge, say up to your first crease on your finger, and you just tuck it under and try and make them look relatively even. Usually do this on petticoats on the stand, so you're doing freehand. And it just literally, and I'm taking it to my crease on my finger. They don't have to be perfect. Just do it quickly. And and then you can tweak it after. Just make sure the grain's straight, and then you can press them after. So that's freehand pleating. So cartridge pleating, it's a way of controlling your fabric really neatly and fitting a large amount into a small area. So how you create them, if you look at the back of it, it has an interlining as a support. In this case, this is Winciette. There's lots of different linings you can use. You can use Winciette. This is ice wool. You could use ice wool. You could use Demet if you liked. It might be a bit heavy depending on what you're doing and the weight of your top fabric. And what you do is you turn down, you fold it over, so you insert your interfacing and you fold the top edge over. And what that does is it creates a support. So when you hold it out, you can see it's helping the fabric to kick out. So where the fold is, you can see the fold is here, the bottom of it. And then you want it to come out a little bit so it kind of diffuses out. So depending on what you're using, that gives you that really nice kick out. So you use this on skirts. You can use it on a sleeve, on a full sleeve, a way of controlling it at the top edge. So that's a cartridge pleat. And when you put it onto the front of a bodice, normally you will have 4 or 5 inches on the center front flat, and then you'll have pleats on either side. So depending on how deep you want your pleats, so these are going from 1 inch to 3/4 to 1/2 to 1/4. So it's graduating down. Because you don't want to make big, say 1 inch pleats all the way around and then it just stops dead like that and you've got a big ditch. So at the beginning of where your flat bit's going to be, you need to graduate them so they taper down. And then you would have your so you decide on your fabrics, what depth you need them to be. So it just kind of smooths down, then you'll have your flat bit and then you'll start again the other side, so graduating up to the larger ones. So it's a good idea to make a sample first with the fabrics you're using so you can figure out what your grading you want it to be. So how you create that is, your cartridge pleating sample is, get yourself a piece of calico, full width, about 20 inches deep, piece of Winciette, about 10 inches deep. And for the sample, I've not quite 4, I've just turned it over. I did turn it over 4 inches, but I overlocked that edge off, so it's a little bit less. And then what you want to do is pop your winciette up to your crease. You can, if you prefer, lay it over the fold and then so it folds back, and you'll get it like that, and you'll get a softer edge. So depending on what effect you're after. In our case, we're just going to bump it up to the crease and make sure it's sitting right in the crease. And then you're going to create a series of dots. So about 2 centimeters in, and you're going to do 8 dots 1 inch apart, or 2.5 centimeters apart. So do 8 dots of that, and then you're going to do 8 dots 3/4 of an inch apart, or 1.8 centimeters apart. Then 8 dots with 1/2 inch, or 1.2 centimeters apart, and then 8 dots at 1/4 inch, 1/2 centimeter apart, either or. And then about 1 inch away from the first one, well, it's about 3/4 of an inch in this case, create another set exactly the same, so it's parallel. And then what would happen if you had a lot heavier fabric, you could create a 3rd row. So depending on the weight of the fabrics that you're using, you do 2 or 3 rows. In our case, we're just going to do 2. And then you use a double thread, and you start it off not there, and do a running stitch along, and you just keep going in, out to each dot. So 2 rows of that. And then you pull them up at the same time, and it controls all your pleats, keeps them even. And you keep your threads a bit long, don't cut them off, because you want to be able, when you come to join it to your waistband, you want to be able to move them and space them when you attach it. So you might space them a little bit, or you might bump them up tight. It depends what you've allowed for, but don't just cut these off short. If you put a pin, and for your sample do this, and then just feed your 2 threads around in a figure 8 like that to keep them secure. Yeah? So that's how you create the cartridge pleating. So with your waistband, you need a strong waistband along the front edge with a double thread. You're going to whip stitch it, so at each pleat you're going to whip through about 3 times. Should be enough, strong enough. And you'll decide the distance you want them at. So if you carry on like that, and then when you lift it up, you just see, you can either have your waistband like that, or you could put it down. And what happens, the bottom of the pleats lean against the waistband or the body, and it helps kick it out. So that way or that way. And that's how you